and welcome to This Is Xbox. They're cooked, baby.
So today, the first of many dominoes has fallen. And I'll be honest with you.
Is this the first of the domino? I feel like a lot of dominoes have fallen.
Xbox has just massively raised their price. The Xbox Series S, which is going from $300 for the base model to $380. And the Series X is going from $499 to $599, which is a $100 price hike. So it's actually a larger percentage on the Series S.
Doesn't matter what the percentage is, it's 80 bucks. 80 bucks is 80 bucks. That's an extra couple nights under the bridge, my guys. Like,
And it's not even just that, it's also games too.
Games are up 80 bucks. Controllers are going up.
We've had a little conversation before filming the video. Where are you at on a baseline for what Microsoft has done here and what the global situation is all about?
I think Microsoft needed to do something bold because Xbox has been the laughing stock of the gaming industry for a while now, and this is not the bold thing that they should have been doing.
I'm so glad that I'm like, Microsoft needs something bold, like raise their prices.
Look, we all know the big elephant in the room besides me is it's tariffs. So it's hard to blame companies when they are raising their pricing with this, but here I go.
wait, what?
Yeah. Every day is a new thing of, you know what, we suspended. No, we didn't suspend it. Yeah, but we did suspend it. But we suspended something.
It's chaos.
Nintendo comes out and they say, here's the Switch 2. It's nice and pretty and shiny. And they're like, we're turning up tariffs. And we kind of said with that, I was just like, they're in a shitty position because I am going to blame Microsoft a little bit on this.
We should be very clear that while some companies like Nintendo, I do think they actually source some Switches from like Vietnam and whatnot. But as far as I know, all Xboxes have been for a very long time been made in China. When you see that 144% tariff or whatever it is by the time you watch this video, that is directly on something like an Xbox, which is coming directly from China.
Trump said he was going to be doing this before he ever got elected
He
president.
did promise that this is what we're getting now.
And like, I'm not an economist. I don't know how long it takes for stuff to happen. If a guy is saying, hey, if I'm elected president 2 years before the election, maybe you start stockpiling.
Can I give a little bit of a smaller example just to kind of help understand? Because I feel like the word tariff has been absolutely blowing up lately. So a friend of mine has a shop. And a few months ago, she purchased some inventory. It was like $1,000 worth of stuff. In the time from when she placed that order and when it actually arrived, tariffs have come. She had to pay $1,400 for the tariff fees to release. That is the exact same mechanism that big companies are going through, right? Microsoft, when they buy, whatever, say there's a pallet or there's a shipping container worth of Xboxes that show up every week, whatever the actual math is. Well, if this was 6 months ago, they would have paid a very small amount for those to be, released and sort of, into the country. Now, that shipping container is going to cost double to 2.5 times, whatever the case is, huge multiples of what it initially was. I know that you're not saying that Microsoft should just eat those costs, right?
What I'm saying is,
crazy.
I feel like they're ill prepared. The second all this stuff started talking, look what Apple did. They went and airlifted
6 planes full of phones or 5 or whatever.
Like, in preparation. I'm gonna use gas stations as an example. Something happens and gas prices immediately go up.
Yes.
But the problem is the gas that's in that tank already at that gas station. I'm gonna use small numbers for my stupid brain. It's cost $10 a barrel for gas, which then costs $1 a gallon.
I love where your brain is in the right spot. I'm with you, man.
The reason I love the 90s. And then something happens, and now gas is $12 a barrel. Well, immediately that gas station goes to $1.25 a gallon. Then the price of a barrel goes down again, and they're like, 100%. Well, no, it's going to take some time.
Now, can you actually pause that for a second? Because I think what you actually just hit on is exactly the way that things work. So think about during COVID, right? COVID was this massive disruption of the whole world, supply chains and factories. And what did we see? We saw prices hike because obviously every shipping container took longer and it was more expensive and yada. All that inflation, all those additional prices that we sort of all had to pay as a collective world on things. Well, once all the shipping containers came back and everything kind of came back to normal, did those prices go down?
No.
Hell no, they didn't, because that's not the way. Like, prices go up. And to be fair, inflation has existed for a very long time. A normal level of inflation is like a couple percent a year. When you look back at 2005 when we paid $60 for an Xbox 360 game, it makes sense that $60 in 2005 was worth a whole lot more than $60 in 2025. Like, that's just a normal thing. What this is something different. The uncertainty, the fear, the doubt, the questioning. If you are Microsoft, how do you price this? So you're big old Philly Spencer, you're sitting in the room. You got to mind game a bunch of different scenarios, right? So you guys say, okay, what do we have to do if it's 144% tariff? What about 100? What about 50? What about 30? What about 10? And you've got to make your best shot because you don't get to just raise the price and lower the price all over the place. Like, it's a huge deal to do that. So you got to sort of throw your best guess. So like, I think it's going to land at 40%. So let's raise the price to account for that. But they're taking a guess here because I'll tell you, even $100 more on Series X does not cover the level of tariffs that are happening right now. If Microsoft has a shipping container full of Series X's that are about to arrive today, they're paying a whole lot more than an extra $100 per console.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. My issue is specifically with the way Microsoft is doing.
Go ahead.
Because to go back to your example of the keyboard stuff, that's a small business. Obviously, they don't have billions and actual trillion.
No, for sure, it's not a $1 billion
capital
reserve. Yeah.
With this uncertainty of today it's X amount of dollars, tomorrow's like with this fluctuation, I feel like it would have behooved Microsoft to wait a little bit longer. So in the Senate, there was a push to rein in some of these tariffs. As of recording this, that got rejected in the Senate.
Yeah,
probably what triggered Microsoft to say this.
Let's just kind of like focus on like what is for sure happening here. Series S, $80 more expensive, effective basically right now. Series X, $100 more expensive, effective basically right now. Games later this year, so first-party Xbox games are expected to go up from $70 to $80. Expected Call of Duty and all of the Microsoft games, much like how Nintendo have kind of already sort of taken the L on pushing some of their games to $80.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's very interesting, and I will agree with you that, like, while I have some sympathy for Microsoft in this scenario, the fact that they're sort of like rolling the game price thing in here feels a little convenient. What's happening is they know that they're going to have to weather the storm and like, oh, sorry, tariffs on the consoles. And they're like, well, we need to raise the price of games anyway. Let's just sneak that in there. Can I just hit you with a couple of
hit me.
Because like I woke up this morning and the very first thing I saw on my phone, Xbox raising prices. And I'll be very honest with you, I had a gut visceral reaction. But here's the thing. If we all live in the reality that I think is the real one, this is not the first and not the last of these things. Right now, there is a large amount of structural change which is happening. It is happening chaotically. It is happening in some questionable ways, I think it's pretty safe to say. But the world works the way it works as of right now. That does not change overnight. You can slap on a 400 billion% tariff on China or any other country you want. That does not change the fact that Microsoft can just make an Xbox and get around the tariffs in some other place or here or whatever tomorrow.
I want to clear something up that, again, we see in comments. Well, why is Xbox a U.S. company?
Yeah. Doesn't matter what company it is. It's just where the
stuff is coming from, which is in this case China. That's why they're effective.
If I was going to have like a real thesis about this thing, I think there's two things that I would personally think are likely. That actual real tariff number, which is over 100% right now, it's going to come down. Otherwise, there would literally just be no trade, or at least a fraction of it, right? Obviously, we're not economists, but I just think that even the numbers that Microsoft have claimed, or the numbers that they're sort of raising the price for, are baking in the fact that it's not 100% price jump. It's going to be at 30% or 40% or whatever the case. So that's kind of like step one, which, I mean, that seems reasonable. This is not going to go away.
No, none of this seems reasonable. We've had years and years and years of record profits from companies, all right? And now suddenly it's like, oh no, because, oh no, they're going to have a little bit less profit.
It's not a little bit more.
I know it's not a little bit more.
Okay, let me give you a scenario.
Being unprepared.
But think about the scale of this thing, okay? Say I look at you and say, hey, Matt, we're looking at the 2026 This Is budget. Guess what? Everyone's salaries are going to go up 140% next year.
And then Kinsey's fired.
Okay, so that's bad.
But like, every company has been like, oh, we need to have record profits every year. Trillion, bajillion layoffs over the past few years.
True.
And now it's like, okay, the tariffs. It's like, well, now we're not going to make as much money. We're acting like these companies are hurting, but guess what? They're not going to have any fucking revenue when no one can buy their product. Their whole thing is a subscription model. Yep. And if they are pricing the thing that gets them the subscriptions out of people's hands, Xbox is dead if they can't get new customers in there.
I hear where you're coming from. And if Microsoft has said that the Xbox Series X is $800 today, I'd be right there.
They sort of did. Every consumer is a monkey brain that all they're going to see is a special edition, and they see that one is at $730. Like, if you look at every one of the comments on Twitter and stuff like that, it's like, who's going to pay $730 for an Xbox? Just go buy a PlayStation. No one looks at things with a logical. They look at the high price, they look at the low price.
I'm just realizing I made a short on the Series S yesterday, and I need to edit it now because it's no longer $300.
But like,
I understand your anger, and I'm not really disagreeing with your anger, but I don't think you can, in good faith, say the companies should just take a massive hit. At a certain point, you're going to lose money, and then what's your end goal?
Just stop selling it for right now.
So that's an option, right? With this, right? I think Microsoft are putting their sort of flag on the ground saying, hey, like, look, we know prices have to go up. There's nothing we can do about it. We're just going to like sort of commit to this thing. I think that there's an argument to be said that if you stop production, once wheels get turning on these things, it's kind of hard to just stop it. If the Xbox supply runs out across the world for 6 months while they pause and wait, you're only kind of like just sidestepping the issue. As much as I don't like them raising the price.
Or is it there's losing money and then there's losing less money?
PlayStation's going to also do the exact same thing tomorrow, right? Like, does anyone doubt that that's going to happen?
No, but for some reason, no one cares when PlayStation done it. PlayStation has raised their price multiple times already.
Although mostly not in the US, though.
But when Xbox does anything, they get like all the shit in the world. I think they need to do something but big and bold, and following the rest of the trend of the world is not something big and bold.
And Microsoft need to be the one who made the first move here.
I'm going to go with the analogy of your unpreparedness does not constitute an emergency for me.
But how would you have prepared for that? Would you have, as Microsoft, shipped 50 million Xboxes to have them sit in inventory? I don't know that you can have that production line who's making 1 million or 2 million Xboxes a month or whatever, suddenly crank out 50 and then just hoard them and then sit on that inventory and all that. Can I actually give you a pitch on what I think would actually make sense? And we're talking more about back to like the whole like how tariffs work and why they exist. If you really wanted to push companies to change, then you would not do it, in my opinion, in a chaotic way of up and down and all over the place. You come to Microsoft, you go to Sony, you go to Nintendo, you go to everybody, you go like something simple, like an easy to understand thing you can plan around. Like, hey, guess what? We're going to, over the next 4 years, raise tariffs from whatever they are right now, 5% or whatever they were beforehand, to 50 or 60%, whatever, like a very high number. And every 3 months, we're gonna crank them up a little bit more and a little bit more. And we're also going to incentivize you, hey, guess what? Here's some tax cuts to like build a factory or whatever the case is, right? If you wanted to be a reasonable, good faith actor and actually pushing this change, you would go about it as an adult and you go step by step.
But that's assuming you have an adult running the country, which we don't.
The problem here is that companies are instead forced to scramble, forced to make their best guesses, forced to just sit on their hands, go, we're just gonna wait this thing out and see what's going on. How much pain, how much sort of trouble do you need to push everyone through across the whole world to get to that point? It's gonna be doubly so when Sony tomorrow, or however long it takes for them to do this exact same thing, they're gonna have to raise the prices. I just find this whole tariff situation to be so absolutely fucking stupid. I can understand some thoughts on, hey, we want to make some structural changes. Cool, approach it like a goddamn adult and don't just crank everything up to 100% or 144% or whatever the case is, up, down, left, right. No company can plan around that. And if you want to invest and you want to push things forward, you have to give some level of structural stability for companies to make plans around. Here's the other side of it, right? Because all of these sort of tariffs are on both sides. Say you are, you're Microsoft. You go, you know what? We really think it's a great idea. We want to build some Xboxes in the US. Oh, wait a minute though. Every Xbox that we export out of the US is also going to be tariffed because we don't know how that's going to work. How could you possibly want to make that change when it is so unsure? And when you know that whatever investment you make is highly likely to, the numbers will just completely evaporate 5 minutes after you make that decision. This is not the way to make the change that I think people think that they want.
This we're talking about Xbox. Show good faith to the people, and this is not the way to do it.
If they're trying to sell $300 Xboxes and it is costing them $500 per console, that is just such an obscene amount of money to lose every single time you sell something. For them to actually keep that price the way it is, they would have to sell you a 10-year subscription to Game Pass, right? Like, just, it is an untenable position for everyone involved. Look, I think there's definitely some grumpiness around what Microsoft have done, why they were the first one to do it, et cetera, et cetera. And I agree with you that there was a potential for them to try to wait it out, let Sony make their move, then they raise the price by half as much as Sony does, whatever. Like, there's definitely things they could do. But I just think it's worth focusing here on, I think that this entire environment is so chaotic, it's really easy to get distracted on what's going on. And there's a very clear thing that's going on, which is there's a trade war that is being perpetuated by a particular individual who is pushing an agenda, which I think just does not make any sense from a financial perspective. It is not a corporate strategy to add a huge load of chaos into a market. To me, this whole situation is bad. I think the fact that Microsoft slid the extra game hike in there and no one's gonna pay attention to it is more than a little nefarious. I just think we should be clear-eyed about what's going on here right now and the causes of it. And we should understand that while Microsoft maybe could have made some slightly different decisions, it's really hard for me to blame them. It's gonna be really hard for me to blame Sony when they slap $100 on the PS5 tomorrow. And it's gonna be really hard for me to say, hey, Nintendo, you know what? Slap another $100, $200 on this Switch 2 in 6 months or whatever. Like, I can't blame any of these companies for doing that because it is a very clear and easy to understand economic formula when a company suddenly has to pay an extra $100, $200, $300 to bring the console into the country. That money's got to come from somewhere, and they don't have some effortless amount of giant piles of cash. Do you remember when Sony lost like $100, $200, $300 on every PS3 they made? They almost went bankrupt.
But like, Microsoft is big enough to burn for like these piles of cash for a while.
So say Microsoft burns $10 billion a year on Xbox. What do they get out of that?
They outlast PlayStation. When PlayStation has to make the PS5 Pro $1,000,
you're just like you're playing chicken.
Yeah,
you're playing chicken.
Is that not what all of this is?
No. I know that we're incredibly grumpy. Can we maybe wrap this up in a slightly more positive way? What is your advice to the little Timmy out there who's looking to buy something?
Stop buying stuff. Stop buying stuff.
Hey, little Timmy, no playing games anymore. Sorry.
Pull out your phone, download Xbox Game Pass, and sign up for xCloud.
I don't know why I asked him this question.
What? If you want to get into gaming for the cheapest amount of money, it's xCloud. If you just sign up for Game Pass, you bypass all of this.
For now.
But like no other company offers that level of service.
I will agree with you that cloud gaming, maybe when consoles have suddenly spiked 20+% in value overnight and price overnight, my advice might be slightly different. Buying now is a smart move. I just think that that is a clever, smart move. You can lock in whatever price you can get your hands on today. The smart money is that everything will be more expensive later, which is a very dangerous proposition. But regardless, it's, we're all fish swimming in the same pond, right? It doesn't matter if you go whatever the way, everyone's gonna go this way. If you're considering buying any kind of technology at this point, I think it is a smart move to make those decisions and purchase it now rather than later. To what degree, I don't know, but I think it's a fairly safe bet. But it's not gonna be the last thing that spikes up in price this year and going forward. Especially now that Microsoft have done this, I think it is literally just a matter of how many days does Sony wait before they do the exact same kind of price jump. If you're thinking about buying some hardware, buy it now. And if not, save some cash. Be ready for when maybe sales come, maybe when there's some relief or whatever. But I just think that there's incredibly uncharted waters ahead. And especially if you are someone who is excited about the wonders and the fantasticness of technology, it's all getting pricey. The end. You not gonna do the outro, Matt? Are you just too grumpy to do the outro?
Like, follow, subscribe, let us know what console you can't afford. We'll catch you in the next one.
All of them. Thanks, Obama.